Hey guys, welcome to The Bottom Half is Red. I'm your host, Barron Longstreth, and I am excited to bring to you a show that is going to give you some thought-provoking discussions. It's going to give you some expert insights to both encourage and some practical steps for how to build an organization that can more effectively introduce the world to Jesus Christ. So what is The Bottom Half is Red? It's all about building a culture of excellence. It's about growing your unique and creative identity. And it's about carrying out the will of God at any cost. So you're going to see that through practical teaching tips, developing a culture of giving, creating branding and marketing, or even methods to help guests feel safe and welcomed. This podcast is going to have you covered. But before we dive into today's episode, I want to take just a moment and extend a special invitation to all of our dedicated listeners. If you're looking to get even more involved in our community and gain some access to some behind-the-scenes stuff, become a Patreon supporter. And you can find that link in the episode description or even on Patreon. Just visit The Bottom Half is Red. Listen, we can't wait to welcome you on board and to share this exciting journey. Now, let's jump into today's episode. Well, hello, this is Barron and Rayna Longstreth, and you are listening to The Bottom Half is Red. And again, we are so thankful that you have taken the time to join us. We hope that you are enjoying this podcast and listening to it and growing from it as much as we are being a part of this. Now, this particular episode is going to be, I would assume, one of our favorites. And the reason why is because it is going to be, we're really going to reach into a very personal part of our existence as lead pastors. And we're just going to jump right in. This episode today, you may have read it in the description, is simply entitled, Hey, You Matter. And my bride has joined me today, and she is going to take us on a journey real quick to let you know exactly what Hey You Matter is all about.
Hey You Matter is who we are. It's how we operate. It's how we want people to know how much that they mean to us and that they matter in the kingdom. They matter in this family of God. They matter. They really matter.
And you said a word right there that I feel like is so vital, and we're going to take a moment just to kind of clarify exactly what that word really means, and that is our personality.
Yes.
And so give us a second here. We're going to try to enter into a very brief, because my executive producer is looking at me like a dragon right now, and he is going to edit the majority of this out, except for this part, because this part needs to stay in here. You all need to know what kind of executive producer we have here on The Bottom Half is Red. So what we're going to do is, here's how we're going to start today. We want to give my wife an opportunity, because really, Hey You Matter was birthed from something that she felt that the Lord was leading her to, and little did we realize how much it would become ingrained into our local culture. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, but first and foremost, when we're dealing with the term personality, we need to make sure that we understand one thing, and that is we're not talking about a company's or an organization's values, okay? So if we were to define values, we would define that as the fundamental principles that mold the behavior and decision-making processes of an organization. That's it, okay? A company's values are incredibly important because they assist in shaping the culture and behavior of the organization. So we won't go in. I think we're really going to pour ourselves into all of this information in another episode, but I wanted to briefly mention that before talking about personality, because I think this is something that we might not think of, babe, as much. And that is, the personality is a term used to describe a combination of characteristics, okay? Traits, behaviors, emotions that define and differentiate let me say it like this, the individual from another, one individual from another. That's what it is. So values refer to the set of principles that govern. Personality pertains to the overall tone and the qualities that establish its image, okay? And I'll say it as quickly as this. Values may be how we see ourselves. Personality is most likely the way that others will see us. So we really need to focus on personality. So when we look at our personality, now I'm shifting to Ray, I'm shifting to the discussion that I really want to have, and I feel like it's so important. And when we met with our executive producer. We began to talk about what episodes were incredibly important for the audience, especially in this first season, this kind of inaugural season. And one of the things that he brought to the table is how important Hey You Matter is to the operation of our local church. The reason why it's so important is because it is a part, it's kind of a two-part, it's the second part, I should say, of how we describe our personality. It's the outflow. One of those is the will of God at any cost. And we define that from a scripture that says, love the Lord your God with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the other is the completion of that definition. When asked, Jesus said the second is like as unto the first, to love your neighbor as yourself. So we felt like here at the church today, the will of God at any cost was incomplete without the other side of the coin. And this is where you come into play. The other side of the coin would have been something that the Lord gave you, and that is, hey, you matter. And I remember the moment that you begin to work this into your local spirit, but I want you to tell us and take us back to the origin of what has now become, and elaborate.
Okay.
Tell us a story and examples of how one almost at the time seemed like it was going to be a passing statement has become now a part of the fabric of the way that we operate as a church. Now, Hey You Matter is not a value that we have. It's our personality. So it's how the values are displayed. Mm-hmm. So please, 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 I think they're going to enjoy this. Take us back to the moment where Hey You Matter was born.
What had happened was, I think it was late 2015, early 2016. We were trying to look through our files and figure out the exact date, and I don't have that. But I do remember coming up to the church, and it was still when we were in storefronts at this time. And I had a bunch of families on my heart that day, and I sat down at my desk, and I was writing them cards. And I realized about the fifth or sixth card that I was writing the same statement over and over. I'd write, hey, and then I'd do exclamation point, because I'm amplified and love to live life out loud. And I would say, you matter to me. And I think it was, I would say like the 5 or 6 card. And I'm like, I am writing the same thing over and over again. And I realize I'm trying to communicate to them that they matter to me. And I am so thankful that they are part of my life. And I remember texting you and I said, babe, I said, can you make me like a card that says, hey, you matter? I'm saying the same thing over and over again to these families. And I really want to communicate to them that they matter. And I think I even said my hand's getting tired because I was just, it's like, I said, my hand's getting tired. And I want to say this I feel this towards every one of them. I want them to know that they matter to me. And so if I could just have my own cards made up, then I could just finish the message, like just thinking about you today. And I just want you to know that you mattered. And just, so that's how it all began. And there was no agenda. There was no plan. It was just, I was trying to communicate to these families that they mattered to me. And that's how it all began. And you made me postcards. I say postcard, but it was a card. And on the front of it, it was just this font that said, hey, you matter. And then I was able to write whatever message that I was feeling for them that day. And that's how it started.
So it started there, and we took it a step further.
Yeah.
So from that, we saw how important that this was, how much it meant to somebody. Mm-hmm. And I remember, and I don't know if you can recall, but I remember when we sat down with our executive team at that time and we presented this. Really, it was kind of your burden like it is today. And I remember our executive pastor and his wife at the time, they've now recently relocated, but at the time, this thing hit within their spirit.
Yeah.
And we took it from something that you personally was just, reaching out to somebody to saying, I think there's something more to this. And we could not have known that all of our church merch.
There's absolutely no way.
There's no way. At that point in time, we would not have known that this would be more than a slogan, that this would be a way that our church would express our God-given mission, our core values. This would be a way that we would express that. Mm-hmm. And the impact that has made in our local body starts online which is obviously the frontier of online is your new front door. And so it's pushed online. It's pushed when they're walking into the door. If they receive a gift, which we always give them, it always has the splash of Hey You Matter on it. Our shirts, hats. I mean, this thing is everywhere. It has become so second nature to the church today in terms of identification that I believe that any person in this church that has been here for, I don't know, a couple of weeks or more would probably be able to quote this as an identifier that this is the way that the church today operates, that its fundamental beliefs are operated through the term, Hey, you matter.
Right. And we sat down with the executive team that day and was asking, like, how do we communicate? How can we communicate this to everyone that comes in this door, that they matter to God, that their existence means something to somebody? And that's how it began to grow. You know, as he was talking earlier, I was trying to think back. I was just thinking back, like, over my life and, you know, birthday cards and just whatever cards or just congratulation cards. I remember there's a statement that my daddy always signed the card, and he would always sign it, Daddy Star, your Daddy Star. And that made me just feel like I just felt like I was the star because he signed it, you know, your Daddy Star. And I've oftentimes thought back over that over the years is that's just that statement, you know, your Daddy Star, whatever. I felt like I should be everybody's star, you know, like I was the star. And so I remember thinking early on in my ministry or in our ministry when we became leaders and stuff, like if there's ever a time and I have the power to do so, I want anybody and everybody underneath our ministry to have that same feeling that they truly can make a difference and that they truly matter to the kingdom. It doesn't matter where they come from, what their background is, what their last name is, what it ain't, whatever. You can fill in the blank. But that they mattered. I wanted to be able to do that. If I had any power whatsoever, that I would be able to pass that down to people. That message is that you matter. You are a star to the Lord.
And then a part of our push towards having and existing in a culture of excellence, Hey, you matter is a foundational stone there, because we feel like that it is our mandated mission to go into all the world. And we are faith-based. We are a local church in our city, one of many. But what helps identify our voice and to get our voice in terms of rising above the racket, if you would, of present-day culture or whatever, is through the efforts of Hey, You Matter. So our desire with Hey, You Matter is more than just making somebody feel good. It is a vehicle that we use in order to get the message, the hope, the gospel of salvation out to our community and to show them and love them. Whether or not there is any return on this investment, you're going to know that there were people that stood by you, that loved you, that did not look at any...
That showed up.
We were there. Yeah. Like we were there, and we're not, even if you're not darkening the doors of the church today, we want them to see Christ, and Hey, You Matter is a vehicle in which that we have used. And so the reason why we're taking the time today to discuss this 3-worded personality statement or this personality vehicle of the church today is to get our listeners, especially those that may be in places of leadership today or of any sort, any person of influence, whether it's in the home, we're speaking to the parents today, whether it's in a faith-based system, we're speaking to leaders today, whether it's a company, an organization, we're speaking with you and to you today and trying to encourage you in your practices to look for a way that you can press and push your purpose out that is clear, that is obtainable, that leaves those that are following you, that leaves them with a clear definition so that they're not confused or frustrated and they don't know how or where to go. And for us, Hey, You Matter is more than a slogan. It is the way that we operate. And it has become a part of the vocal expression of how we have our values situated in a church. And so I think this brings us to a point, Ray, that when we are conveying, Hey, You Matter, I wrote down 4 things. You might have more, but here's 4 ways that I feel like that we convey that those around us matter. Okay. We do it through Christ. We do it through kingdom. Like, you matter to Christ. You matter to the kingdom. You matter to the church.
Yes.
And you matter to the community. And so I don't know if you want to pick apart. I think there's a couple of these that I would like to comment on, but how we as a system, as an organization, how do we as an organization fundamentally tell them that they matter to Jesus Christ?
When you're reading in the Word of the Lord and you see that He gave His life for you, that says that you matter. And to me, that's enough. That's enough. He gave His life for you and I, and that's enough. You matter. And if when you read through the scriptures and you're studying the Word, and you can see that He says, I've got good plans for you. I'm going to prepare a place for you. That's how much. Are we allowed to cry on podcasts?
Absolutely.
That's how much that you matter to Him, that He has gone to prepare a place for you. And so you matter. I don't know who's listening today. Matter of fact, the time that you took today to listen to this podcast matters to me personally. And it matters to us that you took the time. And so I want to say to you, don't ever think it again that you don't matter to Christ, because He's already paid the price. He's already said in His Word, I've gone to prepare a place. And so as we prepare a place on this earth for Him to visit, for you to visit, we're trying to communicate to you that you matter. And then you also said the kingdom. You matter to the kingdom. Everything that you do matters. And I know sometimes it gets mundane when you're leading and when you're a mother or you're a father and you're getting up and you're praying and you're reading the Word and you're fasting. And sometimes you feel like, does this even matter? I want to say to you that it does matter, and Jesus does hear your prayers, and we need you to continue to be steadfast and to continue doing what you're doing, because it does matter and it's needed, and everything that we do for the kingdom will last.
And for those of you that do not know my wife and may not be familiar, the passion that she has at this present moment is the same passion that she has in everything that she does to exhibit that somebody matters. Whether it's at Target, I've seen it, Walmart, I've seen it in the mall. She's got numbers from people all around the city that she's only met once, individuals that she's ministering to, and it all comes down to her conveying that they matter to Jesus Christ. And she recognizes that I am a vehicle. And so, Hey, You Matter is something more than just a slogan for her. It is a vehicle. She is utilizing this in order to reach people and say, listen, you matter to Jesus.
But ye shall receive power. After that, the Holy Ghost comes upon you, and ye shall be witnesses. So I firmly believe, the Lord showed me, I got power so that I could be a witness, so that I could sit here today and say to you that you matter. That I don't even know how to convey that even.
It's all right.
So to echo what you're saying, I've had conversations with Pastor Josh Krebs. He pastors the second campus of the church today. And he has told me about times when he first came into the church and you, Rayna, told him that, hey, I love you. He said that the way that was conveyed, he believed that you legitimately loved him. And I can tell you, that's not true for everybody. People throw around, hey, I love you. But a lot of times it's just an expression, a phrase that's used. But I've seen it personally, and I've talked with other people that, no, 100%, we know, and the audience needs to know that you're not just throwing this out onto the airwaves. You 100% airwaves. You 100% believe what you're saying. And yeah, I love it.
And it's proven over and over again.
Yeah.
You said Christ, kingdom. I can't tell you how many times that "Hey, you matter" has been a I don't know how to say it, but we're conveying this over and over again. And I've seen people walk in this church and do not see their kingdom value, and connecting with, whether it is you, whether it is another leader in this church, on any level of our leadership tier, I have seen that connection and that love that our executive producer David is talking about being conveyed biblically, a love that was first given and then is literally as it's being poured out as God is investing it in. I have seen them literally change their perception of how that they have a worth now in the kingdom. That maybe it was a past mistake, maybe there's shame, maybe there's guilt. And for those of you that might be dealing with these things, we need to recognize that there is kingdom value still and that you still matter. That's the essence of "Hey, you matter." That's the reason why we have adopted this with such a passion, that this is not a slogan for us. It's not just even a printed bunch of letters on a t-shirt so we can get somebody to look in our direction. It is true. It is the way we exist here at the church today. It is a part of the compass that keeps us moving in the right direction. We can say even church, Ray. I remember we didn't have a lot of money. I mean, we grew this thing from the ground up by the help of the Lord. And without even having that money, we knew that God had called us to a certain level, and we were doing our best to operate at that level. And we have brought up quite a few times on this podcast about the essence of worship, and that's not exactly all that you do. You are so much more. But in dealing with that, we have seen that people's passions were within the music department. And I can't tell you how many, half a dozen I know at least, in the last 15 years that somebody has exhibited a desire to be a part of the team. They had rhythm. They didn't have the knowledge. And so we said, listen, what we'll do is we'll pay for you to have 6 months worth of lessons. How many times have we done that?
That's how much you matter to us.
That's how much you matter to the church.
That's how much we value you.
That's how much we value you. And in turn, now they are a part of the team in which is operating and effective. And that it's not just about throwing money in a certain direction. That's not what this is. This is about saying, listen, this investment, as little as it is worth it.
Yeah.
This investment is worth it. You matter to this church. And it doesn't have to be just that way. But we as leaders, we need to see the value of how our personality, especially from the top down. You just heard my wife and her passion. She exists like this. This is where she dwells. But we are now a church that believes this. We believe that people matter. And it might have started as something, but now, it's ingrained into the fabric of the church today and beyond. So it doesn't just affect the kingdom of God. It doesn't just affect the church. We're taking this out into the community. We're displaying these things. And Hey, You Matter is something that is essentially a way in which now the church is able to say, we see how we have to connect. And that is to do our best to be able to tell somebody else that they have such extreme value. If Jesus Christ would be birthed, live 33 plus years, take it all the way to Calvary, if he'll do that, there is nothing more that says you matter than that. There's nothing more. So if we're going to recap, remember, values are critical, but you have to have an understanding of what your personality is. You can evaluate where you're at, how do you operate? Do we clearly communicate these things? Reinforce this methodology of what vehicles are we using? It doesn't have to be, Hey, You Matter, but quite probable there is some form of personality. Make sure it's intentional and in the direction you want to go. Because how long has this been? 10, 12 years?
Yeah.
We'll call it 10 years, and I'm probably off, but it's somewhere around 10 years. And in 10 years, it has gone from handwritten cards to the fabric of saying, loving thy neighbor as thyself. The key is this: put your message, put your personality into action. That's what you need to do. Let your values and personality rise above the surrounding clamor. Do that. And by all means, let somebody know somehow, hey, you matter.
The bottom half is we need you, we love you, and you matter to us.
Thank you so much for joining us on The Bottom Half is Red. Listen, I hope you have enjoyed your time with us today and gained something of value. If you love what you heard today, please do not forget to subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. This helps us. Your feedback is incredibly crucial, and we want to improve on what we're doing and to bring you the best content possible. You can find us on Facebook, look us up, Instagram, even YouTube at The Bottom Half is Red. Hey, be sure to check the episode description for any links to any resources that we have mentioned during the show. You don't want to miss out. This podcast is a production of the Church Today here in the great city of Tulsa, and the executive producer is our very own David Tandera. I hope you've had a fantastic time, and we look forward to having you with us again on our next episode of The Bottom Half is Red. We'll see you then.